After my husband's death, I discovered he had left a large debt behind that I was now responsible for. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. The house was too quiet. That was the first thing I noticed in the days after Thomas died. The silence was physical, oppressive, like something I could reach out and touch. No sound of his footsteps on the stairs. No morning coffee brewing. No low murmur of his voice on the phone. Just silence, stretching through every room, filling every corner. I moved through those first days in a fog. People came and went. Friends brought casseroles and flowers. My sister stayed for a week, helping with arrangements, answering the door, fielding phone calls. Everyone spoke in hushed voices, as if speaking normally would somehow be disrespectful to the dead. The funeral was on a gray Tuesday in October. The church was full. Thomas had been well-liked, one of those men everyone described as steady, reliable, kind. People told me stories I had heard before. How he had helped someone move. How he had fixed a neighbor's porch. How he always had time to listen. I stood beside his casket and accepted condolences, shook hands, let people hug me. I did not cry. I think people found that strange, but I had no tears left. I had cried them all in the hospital, watching him slip away, holding his hand as his breathing grew shallow and then stopped. Now there was just numbness. After the funeral, after everyone left, after my sister finally went home, I was alone in the house Thomas and I had shared for 28 years. 28 years of marriage. 28 years of building a life together. And now he was gone, and I did not know what to do with all this silence. I started going through his things because people told me I should. Sort through his clothes, cancel his subscriptions, close his accounts, all the practical tasks that come after death, the bureaucratic dismantling of a life. His office was on the second floor, a small room overlooking the backyard. He had spent hours in here, especially in the last few years after he had taken early retirement. Managing investments, he said, keeping busy. I had rarely come in here. It had been his space, and I had respected that. Now I sat at his desk, looking at the stacks of papers, the filing cabinet in the corner, the computer with its dark screen. Where to even begin? I started with the desk drawers. Pens, sticky notes, old receipts. Nothing unusual. Then I moved to the filing cabinet. Insurance policies, tax returns, medical records. And then, in the back of the bottom drawer, a folder labeled simply Financial. I pulled it out and opened it. The first document was a credit card statement. The balance made my breath catch. $47,000. I stared at the number, certain I was reading it wrong. But no, $47,000 on a single credit card. My hands shaking, I flipped through the rest of the folder. More statements, more cards, different banks, different account numbers, but all the same story. Thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. I spread them out on the desk, my heart pounding, and started adding them up. $183,000. We owed $183,000. No, not we. He had owed, and now I owed. I sat back in the chair, the statements scattered in front of me, and tried to understand. We had been comfortable, not wealthy, but comfortable. We owned our home outright. We had savings. Thomas's pension covered our expenses. How could there be this much debt? I looked at the statements more closely, tracing the charges. Cash advances, wire transfers, large purchases I did not recognize, dating back years, some of them 5, 6, 7 years old. He had been accumulating this debt for years, and I had known nothing about it. I felt sick, dizzy. I stood up and walked to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. In the mirror, I looked pale, hollow-eyed, like a stranger. How had I not known? How had I lived with this man for nearly 3 decades and not seen this? I went back to the office and kept searching. There had to be more. There had to be an explanation. In another drawer, I found bank statements for accounts I did not recognize. Checking accounts in Thomas's name only. Savings accounts that had been emptied. Investment accounts that showed massive losses. There was a pattern if I looked closely enough. Money moving from one account to another. Balances dwindling. Debts mounting. It was like watching a slow-motion disaster, all laid out in neat columns of numbers. And then I found the letter. It was in an envelope, unsealed, tucked into a book on the shelf. The return address was from a law firm I did not know. Inside was a notice about a lawsuit, a business partnership gone wrong, a default judgment. Thomas was being sued for $75,000. I sat down on the floor, the letter in my hand, and finally, the tears came. Not gentle tears. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I did not know existed. I cried for the loss of my husband, yes, but I also cried for the loss of something else. The loss of the life I thought I had. The loss of the man I thought I knew. When I finally stopped crying, I called the bank. The customer service representative was polite but firm. Yes, I was listed as a joint account holder on the credit cards. Yes, that meant I was responsible for the debt. Yes, they expected payment. But I didn't make these charges, I said, my voice breaking. I didn't even know about these cards. I understand, Mrs. Patterson, but legally, you're liable. We can discuss payment options if you'd like. Payment options for $183,000. I hung up and called a lawyer. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. The lawyer, a woman named Catherine Reed, agreed to meet with me the next day. I brought all the papers, all the statements, everything I had found. She spread them out on her conference table, reading carefully, making notes. "This is complicated," she said finally. "You're right that you're liable for joint accounts. For the others, the ones in his name only, it depends on your state's laws about marital debt. We'll need to investigate further." "How much will I have to pay?" She hesitated. "Potentially all of it, unless we can prove you had no knowledge of the debts and received no benefit from them. Even then, it's difficult." "I didn't benefit from any of this. I don't even know what the money was spent on." "That's what we need to find out." Over the next few weeks, Catherine helped me piece together the story. It was slow, painful work. Every document revealed another layer of deception, another secret Thomas had kept. He had started a business venture 5 years ago, a real estate investment scheme that had promised huge returns. He had borrowed against our house without telling me, had taken out personal loans, had maxed out credit cards. The business had failed, spectacularly, and instead of telling me, instead of admitting what had happened, he had tried to fix it, borrowed more money, made riskier investments, dug the hole deeper and deeper. Why didn't he tell me? I asked Catherine, my voice hollow. Shame, probably. Fear. Men of his generation, especially, they often feel like they have to handle everything themselves. Admitting failure feels like admitting weakness. So he just let it all pile up? Let it get this bad? It happens more often than you'd think. I went through his computer next, with Catherine's guidance. Emails revealed more of the story. Desperate messages to business partners. Promises to pay that he had no way of keeping. Pleading with creditors for more time. And then I found the other emails, the ones to a woman named Diane. They started 3 years ago. Friendly at first, then more personal, then intimate. I sat at his desk, reading through years of correspondence with a woman I had never heard of, and I felt something inside me break. He had been having an affair. For 3 years. While I made him dinner and did his laundry and believed we were happy. The messages were tender, full of affection. He told her things he had never told me. his fears, his regrets, his feelings of failure, and he had been sending her money, thousands of dollars, helping her with rent, with bills, with expenses. I traced the wire transfers in the bank statements, matched them with the dates in the emails. It all lined up. He had bankrupted us to support another woman. I called Catherine, told her what I had found. Does this change anything? Legally? Unfortunately, no. The debt is still the debt. The reasons behind it don't change your liability. I hung up and sat in the silence of the house, surrounded by the evidence of my husband's double life, and I felt something I had not felt since he died. Anger, pure, burning anger. How dare he? How dare he do this to me? How dare he lie and deceive and leave me to clean up this mess? I wanted to scream at him, wanted to demand answers, wanted to shake him and ask why. But he was dead, and the dead do not answer. I called Diane, found her number in his phone records. She answered on the third ring. Hello? This is Catherine Patterson, Thomas's wife. Silence. I know who you are, I continued, my voice steady despite my shaking hands. I know about the affair. I know about the money. I didn't know he was married, not at first. When I found out, I tried to end it. But he said you two were separated, that we were not separated. We were married, living together, happy, or so I thought. I'm so sorry, I truly am. When I heard he died, I didn't know what to do. I thought about reaching out, but did you know about the debt? About the money he borrowed? He told me he was helping me through a rough patch. I thought he could afford it. I never asked him to give me money. He wanted to help. She sounded young, sad, maybe even genuine. I did not know what I had expected from this conversation. Answers, maybe, closure. But all I felt was tired. He left me with nearly $200,000 in debt, I said. I'm going to lose my house, my savings, everything we built, because of you, because of his choices. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, I didn't know. I hung up. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying our entire marriage in my mind, looking for signs I had missed. Moments when I should have known something was wrong. Had he been unhappy? Had I failed him somehow? Was this my fault? No. I pushed that thought away. This was not my fault. He had made choices, bad choices, selfish choices, and now I was paying the price. I got up and went to his office, sat at his desk, looked at all the papers, all the evidence of his deception, and I started making a plan. Catherine had laid out my options. I could try to negotiate with creditors, set up payment plans. I could sell the house, use the equity to pay down the debt. I could declare bankruptcy, though that came with its own consequences. None of the options were good, but I had to choose. I spent the next month meeting with creditors, with banks, with lawyers. I explained my situation over and over. Widow, unaware of the debt, no way to pay. Some were sympathetic, most were not. They wanted their money, and they did not care about my circumstances. I sold everything I could. Thomas's car, his tools, the furniture we did not need. I took a job, my first job in 10 years, working as an administrative assistant at a local company. The pay was not much, but it was something. I cut expenses to the bone, no eating out, no new clothes, no luxuries of any kind. And I made a decision about the house. It was the hardest decision I had ever made. This house held 28 years of memories. My children had grown up here. Thomas and I had celebrated anniversaries, birthdays, ordinary Tuesday evenings here. But it was just a house, and I could not let it trap me. I put it on the market. It sold within a month. A young family, excited about the big backyard, the good school district, all the things Thomas and I had loved about it, too. I used the proceeds to pay off most of the debt. Not all of it, but most. I negotiated settlements with some creditors, set up payment plans for the rest, and then I rented a small apartment across town and started over. The apartment was tiny, 1 bedroom, a galley kitchen, but it was mine, and it was affordable. and more than anything, it was free from the weight of the past. I brought only what I needed: clothes, books, a few pieces of furniture. I left the rest behind, sold it, or donated it, or threw it away. In the process of packing, I found a box of old photos. Pictures from when Thomas and I were young, our wedding day, vacations, holidays with the kids. I looked at his face in those photos, smiling, happy, and I tried to reconcile that man with the one who had lied to me for years. Had he ever really loved me? Had any of it been real? I did not know, and maybe I never would. I kept a few photos, not many. Just enough to remember that there had been good times once, before everything fell apart. One evening, about 6 months after Thomas's death, I sat at the small desk in my apartment and I wrote him a letter. I did not know why. He was dead. He would never read it. But I needed to say it anyway. Thomas, I'm angry with you. I think I'll always be angry with you, at least a little. You lied to me. You betrayed me. You left me with a mess I'm still trying to clean up. But I also know you were human. You made mistakes, bad ones. And maybe you were too proud or too scared to tell me the truth. Maybe you thought you could fix it all and I'd never have to know. I wish you had trusted me. I wish you had let me help. We were supposed to be partners, you and I. But you shut me out, and now I'll never understand why. I loved you. I need you to know that. Despite everything, I loved you. And part of me always will, even as I try to move forward without you. I'm selling the house. I know you'd hate that. But I can't keep it. Not with the debt. Not with the memories. It's time to let it go. I'm letting you go too. Not the good parts. I'll keep those. But the rest, the secrets and the lies and the pain, I'm letting them go. I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Goodbye, Thomas. I folded the letter and put it in an envelope. I did not mail it. There was nowhere to send it. Instead, I put it in a drawer, tucked away with the few photos I had kept. The next few months were hard. I worked long hours, paid down debt, slowly rebuilt my life. My children helped when they could, though they had their own lives, their own struggles. They had been shocked to learn about their father's debts, about the affair. It had changed how they saw him, and I felt guilty about that, even though it was not my fault. But gradually, things got easier. The debt shrank. My savings grew, slowly. I made friends at work. I started to feel like myself again, or maybe like a new version of myself, someone stronger, someone who had survived something terrible and come out the other side. A year after Thomas died, I was debt-free. I had paid off every cent. It had taken everything I had, every extra hour of work, every sacrifice. But I had done it. I celebrated alone in my small apartment, with a glass of cheap wine and a sense of relief so profound it made me dizzy. I was free, not just from the debt, but from the weight of his secrets, from the shame of not knowing, from the fear that I would never be okay again. I was 57 years old. I had lost my husband, my home, my sense of security, but I had found something too. Myself, my strength, my ability to survive. One Saturday afternoon, I drove past our old house. The new family had painted the front door red. There were toys in the yard, a tire swing on the big oak tree. It looked happy, lived in, loved. I felt a pang of loss, but also something else. Gratitude. That house had held joy once, for me and Thomas and our children, and now it would hold joy for someone else. That was enough. I drove back to my apartment, made myself dinner, and sat on my small balcony watching the sunset. I thought about Thomas, about the man I had loved and the man he had actually been, about the ways we had failed each other, the ways we had loved each other. I thought about forgiveness and whether it was something you gave to someone else or something you gave to yourself. And I thought about the future, about the years I still had ahead of me, years to work, to save, to build something new. I was not the same woman I had been when Thomas was alive. That woman had been comfortable, complacent, a little bit naive. This woman, the one I was now, was harder, more cautious, but also more capable, more certain of what she could survive. I had paid off $183,000 in debt. I had lost my home and rebuilt my life from nothing. If I could do that, I could do anything. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I raised my glass to it, to the future, to the woman I had become. To new beginnings, I said aloud. And I meant it. Thomas had left me with debt, with secrets, with betrayal. But he had also, without meaning to, given me something valuable. The knowledge that I was strong enough to survive anything, that I did not need anyone to save me, because I could save myself. That at 57, my life was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning. I finished my wine and went inside. Tomorrow I would go to work, pay my bills, continue building my new life, one day at a time. But tonight, I let myself rest. Let myself feel proud of how far I had come. I had survived the worst thing I could imagine, and I was still here, still standing, still whole. That was enough.